In humanity's search for meaning, happiness, and understanding in life, could it be that there simply isn't any and never will be? Could the truth of existence be that human life is like a cruel joke, filled primarily with suffering and pain, which is all for nothing? The philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer believes so, writing, "There's not much to be got anywhere in the world. It is filled with misery and pain. If a man escapes these, boredom lies at wait for him at every corner. Nay more, it is evil which generally has the upper hand, and folly that makes the most noise. Fate is cruel, and mankind pitiable." Although many thinkers in his time and today brush Schopenhauer off as being too pessimistic, he saw his work as clarifying how the world truly is. After all, the goal of his philosophy was to lay bare the true nature of the world. This video will take a concise look at Schopenhauer's metaphysical thesis, the world as will, to understand why he thought life inescapable suffering, his philosophical pessimism, his solution to life suffering, and my thoughts on how relevant his philosophy still is today. First, Schopenhauer thought he had metaphysical grounds, meaning a theory about what reality is, that proved human existence entails primarily suffering and boredom, which he detailed in his work, The World as Will and Representation. He believed the universe to be a manifestation of something he called the will, or the will to live, a blind impulse or force outside space and time characterized by relentless striving. He arrived at this conclusion from studying and building upon Immanuel Kant's transcendental idealism, a metaphysical idea in which conscious subjects cognize the object of experience not as they are in themselves, but only the way they appear to us under the conditions of our sensibility. Now, Kant believed that there is a reality beyond sense data that he called the noumena, but unfortunately we can never really know it, only how it appears in our minds as phenomena. Like Kant, Schopenhauer believed there was an underlying force that brought rise to the noumenal. However, unlike Kant, he believed that we could come to know it by directing our attention inward to ourselves. Our body, after all, is the one object in the world in which we experience from within. When one does this, they discover the will, this unconscious force of relentless striving that makes up not just our body, but also the entire universe. The world, as we know it, is simply a representation or objectification of the will. Everything presses and strives toward existence. Let anyone consider this universal desire for life. Let him see the infinite willingness, facility, and exuberance with which the will to live presses impetuously into existence under a million forms everywhere and at every moment. In such phenomena, then, it becomes visible that I am right in declaring that the will to live is that which cannot be further explained, but lies at the foundation of all explanation. When we examine the will from looking inward, we see this will relentlessly pushes us and other organisms toward nourishment and propagation. The will does this because it must feed off itself to survive, as it's the only thing in existence. This realization of the will has profound implications on our lives and how we live, which Schopenhauer details in his philosophical pessimism. Now, philosophical pessimism isn't a feeling or attitude toward life, but a philosophical worldview that directly challenges the notion of progress and illogical faith-based claims of optimism. Because the will has no ultimate goal or purpose, human existence is one of insatiable striving, he surmised. It's insatiable striving because satisfaction of the will is impossible, and as humans, we are but manifestations of it. We're always motivated by feelings like hunger, thirst, propagation, the need to achieve, and more cravings, which he saw arising from the will. The problem is that when we don't satiate a need or fulfill a desire, we become frustrated, which results in suffering. The needs of the will can and never be fully satiated. Thus, human existence is suffering. As he wrote, life swings like a pendulum backward and forward between pain and boredom. See, we're all taught that happiness and meaning await us just around the corner, especially if we strive and work hard enough in life. However, he thought this was just an illusion, writing, "Optimism is not only a false but pernicious doctrine, for it presents life as a desirable state and man's happiness as its aim and object. Starting from this, everyone then believes he has the most legitimate claim to happiness and enjoyment. If, as usually happens, these do not fall to his lot, he believes that he suffers an injustice, in fact that he misses the whole point of his existence." He noticed that whenever we do satiate a craving or reach a goal, one of two things always happens. Number one, we just immediately go back to craving or striving for something else to make us feel happy or at peace. Or number two, we become bored with life. Once the novelty of achieving our goal and being free from the craving wears off, we succumb to boredom, eventually giving way to craving and desire again. It's not our fault or anyone else's this happens, it's simply how the world is and how we fundamentally are as humans. Human reason, being a manifestation of the will, can't ever satiate the will. In fact, it appears the revered cognitive capacities of the human race only serve to help us understand more clearly than other animals just how terrible and pointless life is. An example he points to is death, the cherry on top of cruel, terrible existence. Human beings are the only animal that fully understands that we will die no matter what in the future. Life is a twisted joke. We're all blessed with the opportunity to think about this inevitable truth from time to time during our day as we live. Unfortunately, there's no light at the end of the tunnel for the human species to stop suffering, as the will pushes us irrationally to continue to reproduce so it can continue to exist. If children were brought into the world by an act of pure reason alone, would the human race continue to exist? Would not a man rather have so much sympathy with the coming generation as to spare the burden of existence, or at any rate not take it upon himself to impose that burden upon it in cold blood? Once one becomes conscious of this unending cycle of craving and suffering, the thought of suicide eventually arises. Schopenhauer wrote that many philosophers and thinkers quickly push away the idea of suicide as irrational and wrong. However, he believed that this was a natural thought one might have during our lifetime, and we ought to have a serious conversation about it, one that many other intellectuals simply didn't want to consider. Ultimately, though, he concluded suicide was not a great solution, since we are still manifestations of the will, even in death. Perhaps the following quote summarizes his philosophical pessimism and thoughts on existence. Life is a constant process of dying. Being a deep thinker, Schopenhauer thought about this problem of human existence and came to a solution on what to do. He thought the answer doesn't lie in Western thought, but in the asceticism or practice of self-denial of the East. Just like monks, only by reducing and suppressing our craving, by living in the moment, can humanity ever come to know peace. A full detailed explanation of his answer deserves its full video, however. So how relevant is Schopenhauer today and his philosophical pessimism? Well, clearly today we know that the idea of the universe as an underlying force called the will is wrong, leading some philosophers, psychologists, and thinkers to declare him fully irrelevant today. But a quick look around social media sites like Reddit and discussion with friends on their life's direction and purpose show that Schopenhauer is more relevant than ever today, whether people know of him or not. Yes, his metaphysics made no sense, but he thought up that solution long before ideas like the subconscious mind, genetics, hedonic adaptation, and even a clear understanding of Darwin's theory of evolution was in place. Now, perhaps your life is going all right up to this point, but life is a daily struggle for many people. It could be because they are refugees in a war-torn country, or they were born with all the resources in the world, but are more depressed and anxious on average due to genetics. Suicide rates today are increasing, indicating perhaps the positive existential responses to Schopenhauer in the 19th, 20th, and 21st centuries by philosophers and psychologists are either not good enough, not readily available, or perhaps not practical enough for many, many people out there. However, this is just one often depressed man's thoughts on life, and I'll be examining more responses to his pessimism in both Western thought and Eastern thought coming up soon. Now, if you like this video, make sure to subscribe for more videos like it using the link in the description and turn on the notification bell to receive updates when new videos come out. And if this video helped you at all or was informative, please give it a like, as that helps it rise in the YouTube algorithm. So thanks for watching, and I will see you again.